Hey everyone, welcome to this video on Node.js Basics. Node is a popularly used JavaScript framework for backend development. It has been widely adopted by developers across the globe. This video will introduce you to Node.js. We will first begin by understanding what exactly Node is and what its salary trends are. Later, we will understand its architecture and what makes it stand out from other frameworks. After that, our instructor will guide you through a step-by-step process to install Node.js on your system. And lastly, you will learn how to connect React.js with the Node.js platform and build a simple application. But before we begin, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon to never miss an update. So without further ado, let's begin.
Welcome to this video by Simplilearn. In today's session, we're going to learn all about Node.js. So without further ado, let's begin and look at what's in store for us. First up, we'll understand what exactly Node.js is. Then we'll understand the necessity of Node.js. Then we'll learn about some of the parts of Node.js, Node.js Express framework, Node.js use cases, and finally we'll look at some of the industry trends. So what exactly is Node.js? Now consider a scenario where a user interacts with a web application. The user only interacts with the front end of the application. But there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. Now in a web application, there's a front end, a server, and a database. The front end is developed using JavaScript and frameworks like Angular and React, while the server is built on Java, PHP, or Node.js, and the backend database that stores the data usually consists of MySQL or MongoDB. So Node.js is an open source, cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment for running server-side applications. It is used to develop I/O-intensive web applications like video streaming sites, single-page applications, online chatting applications, and other web applications. It is used by large, established companies and newly minted startups. Node.js was developed by Ryan Dahl in 2009, and at the same time of this session, its latest version is v13.3.0. Now that we know what Node.js is, let's go ahead and look at why it was so prevalent in the field of web development. Here are a few points. First up, Node.js is extremely fast. Being built on Google Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine, its library is extremely fast in code execution. Node Package Manager has around 50,000 bundles for developers, so whatever functionality is required for an application can be easily imported from NPM. All APIs of Node.js library are asynchronous, that is non-blocking. It means a Node.js-based server never waits for an API to return data. Node.js dramatically reduces the processing time while uploading video and audio files. It is also an open source platform and is easy for beginners for web development. The above reasons more than justify the popularity of Node.js platform and why it is being adopted by a large number of organizations and businesses today. So now moving on, let's familiarize ourselves with the parts of Node.js. Node.js consists of several components. Now let's look at them one by one. First up, we have modules. Now modules are like JavaScript libraries which are used in a Node.js application to include a set of functions. Now we can use require function with a parenthesis to include a module in a Node.js application. Node.js application has many modules to provide basic functionality needed for a web application. Some of them could be HTTP, util, fs, URL, query string, stream, and zlib. Next up, we have console. The console module provides a simple debugging console that is similar to the JavaScript console mechanism provided by web browsers. Now the console can print messages to stdout that print standard output messages and stderr to print the error messages. The next component is cluster. Now Node.js is built upon the concept of single threading programming. A single instance of Node.js runs in a single thread. To take advantage of multi-core systems, the user will sometimes want to launch a cluster of Node.js processes to handle the load. A cluster can be added to an application in this way. Here's a small code for you. The next component is global. Now global objects in Node.js are available in all modules. Now these objects are functions, modules, strings, etc. Some Node.js global objects are mentioned in the table. You have dir name, that is the directory name, file name, exports, module, and require. The next component is error handling. Now Node.js applications experience 4 types of errors. We have the standard JavaScript errors, system errors, user-specific errors, and assertion errors. Now errors in Node.js are handled through exceptions. Now for example, let's handle an error that would occur when we divide a number by 0. Now this error would crash the Node.js application, and so we should handle this error. Here's a small code for you. Next up, we have streaming. A stream is an abstract interface for working with streaming data in Node.js. Streams are objects that let you read data or write data continuously. There are 4 types of streams. First one is the readable. These are the types of streams from which data can be read. Writable, these are the types of streams to which data can be written. Duplex, these are both readable and writable streams. Lastly, we have transform. These streams can manipulate the data while it is being read or written. Moving on to the next component, buffer. The JavaScript language has no mechanism for reading or manipulating streams of binary data. Buffer is a module that allows handling streams that contain only binary data. An empty buffer of length 10 can be created by this method. Next up, we have domain. Domains provide a way to handle different I/O operations as a single group. Domain module intercepts errors that remain unhandled. There are 2 types of methods that are used for intercepting these errors. Firstly, we have internal binding. In this case, the error emitter executes its code inside the error method. Next up is the external binding. Now here, the error emitter is explicitly added to a domain via its add method. The next component is the DNS. The DNS module enables name resolution. For example, it is used to look up the IP addresses of host names. DNS module is used to connect to a DNS server and perform name resolution by using the method dns.resolve. The DNS module is also used for performing name resolution without a network communication by using the method dns.lookup. The next component is the debugger. Node.js includes an out-of-process debugging utility accessible via a V8 inspector and built-in debugging client. This Node.js debugger is not feature-packed but supports simple inspection of code. It can be used in the terminal by using the inspect keyword before the name of the JavaScript file. In order to inspect a file, say myscript.js, you can use the following method. Now that we are familiar with all the major parts of Node.js, let's go ahead and learn about the Node.js Express framework. Express is a flexible Node.js web application framework that provides a wide set of features to develop both web and mobile applications. You can assume Express as a layer built on top of the Node.js that helps manage the server and the routes. Now let's have a quick look at some of the core features of Express framework. It is used to design single-page, multi-page and hybrid web applications. It allows the setting up of middleware to respond to HTTP requests. It defines a routing table that is used to perform different actions based on the HTTP method and URL. It also allows dynamic rendering of HTML pages based on passing arguments to templates. Now moving on, let's take a quick example of a simple Hello World program. Now this is developed using Express framework to gain a better understanding. Alright, first up we have the var express. Now this is used to import Express framework into our Node.js application. Now the app.get method is a callback function with parameters request and response. The request object represents the HTTP request and has properties for the request query string, parameters, body, HTTP headers, etc. The response object represents the HTTP response that an Express app sends when it gets an HTTP request. Now the application will listen to the defined port, which in this case is 8081, and variables host and port will contain the address and the port respectively. Lastly, we have the console.log, which is used to show the address and port in the command prompt. So this is what the command prompt would look like. And finally, the output is displayed on the web browser. Having learned about the Express framework, now let's move on and look at the Node.js use cases. Now it is no doubt that Node stands out for its speed and intensive data exchange. So top industry leaders like NASA, PayPal, Netflix among others incorporate Node.js. First up, we have Netflix. The world's leading internet television network with over 117 million users is one of the top companies that trusted their services to Node.js. The reasons why the company chose to use Node.js were application scalability and data-intensive application. Now you must be wondering what application scalability is. It is basically the potential of an application to grow in time, being able to efficiently handle more and more requests per minute. And data-intensive application allows millions of people to stream Netflix simultaneously. Next up is Walmart. Now Walmart is the world's largest company by revenue with around $514 billion according to the Fortune Global 500 list in 2019. Again, the reasons why the company chose Node.js were asynchronous I/O and efficient handling of concurrent requests. Now, asynchronous I/O, which is a form of input-output processing, allows other processing to continue before the transmission has finished. Node.js is able to efficiently handle concurrent requests with the use of thread pool and event queues. Uber. Uber is an American multinational ride-hailing company offering services that include peer-to-peer ride-sharing, ride service hailing, and food delivery. The reasons why the company chose Node.js were asynchronous I/O, quick iterations, and active open source community. As mentioned earlier, asynchronous I/O permits other processing to continue before the transmission has finished. Now, quick iterations. Now, Node.js is continually being updated and added new features that help in further improvement in the performance of web servers. And finally, active open source community resolves many problems that an organization may face in a particular scenario. Next up, we have NASA. Now, NASA is an independent agency of the United States federal government responsible for the civilian space program as well as aeronautics and aerospace research. The reasons why the company chose Node.js were reduced access times, handling of data-intensive tasks, and the fact that the servers are active 24/7. Now, NASA has lots and lots of data, and using Node.js has really helped them in reducing the access times. It is also continuously handling and working with large streams of data. Node.js is highly stable, which helps in keeping the server active 24/7. Next up, we have PayPal. Now, PayPal is an American company operating a worldwide online payment system that supports online money transfers as opposed to traditional methods like checks and money orders. The reasons why the company chose to use Node.js were the fact that Node.js has extremely fast build times. It allows tasks to be carried out with fewer lines of code when compared to other server technologies like Java and PHP. And Node.js, being data intensive, efficiently handles a large amount of data. Next up is Medium. Medium is a popular online publishing platform developed by Evan Williams and launched in August 2012. The main reasons why the company chose to use Node.js were A. Data-driven applications. Now, these applications are ideal for being interfaced with Node.js servers. B. To run A/B tests. Now, A/B testing is essentially an experiment where two or more variants of a page are shown to users at random, and statistical analysis is used to determine which variation performs better. Lastly, Node.js server maintenance is simpler than its counterparts. Moving on to the last topic of this session, industry trends. Now, Node.js developers are in demand across the globe since many companies are adopting JavaScript libraries. According to Forbes, it is one of the top 10 most in-demand jobs. According to NodeSource, the total number of Node.js downloads increased by 40% in the last 1 year. The use of Node.js in production has increased dramatically since its release in 2010. With early adopters such as LinkedIn, PayPal, and Netflix, among others, Node.js has seen an exponential increase in its use in web development. The popularity of Node.js is also accounted to JavaScript. Now, since JavaScript is the most popular language, as evident from a survey conducted by Stack Overflow in 2019, many developers can start working on Node.js library with not much of a learning curve. Node.js developers are being offered better salary options than other web technology developers. According to PayScale, the average salary of a Node.js developer in India is around 6,13,000 rupees per year. The average salary of a Node.js developer across the United States is around $105,000 US per year.
Hello, this is Matthew from Simplilearn, and today we're going to jump into Node.js and the architecture around Node.js. So why would you want to get involved with working with Node.js? Well, there's actually a lot of great reasons. A lot of the top web applications that you are working on today are built with Node.js. And the architecture beneath it allows you to not only just build those web applications, but to be able to build end-class applications. And by end-class, we mean microservice-driven applications, so applications that are running on your phone, on your desktop, on your tablets. They can all be built with Node.js. And there are huge advantages around working with Node.js. One of the biggest ones being the huge community around Node.js. Node.js is just one of those standard solutions that you use for building out your core architecture when you're building out an application. And there's just a lot of people out there that are using it. So let's jump into web applications and how it would be of benefit to you with your web solutions. So with Node.js, you have the client side and the server side. And the client side has the solutions that allow you to have hooks into the client side put together very easily. So behind the scenes of the client, you have servers, technology, and connections to your database. So if you're building out your solutions with Node.js, it makes it very easy to be able to architect the entire solution from top to bottom for your entire environment. Whether you're building that locally on a test server, whether you're building for a traditional data center, or if you're working in the cloud. So on the client, you're going to be using technologies such as React.js and Angular. In the server, you're going to be using Node.js, PHP, and Java. And then the database itself is going to be something like MySQL or MongoDB. And actually, the number of databases that can be supported with Node.js is increasing all the time. So when you're working with writing your code in Angular or React.js, you can even use Vue. That's actually a great one working with Node.js. You have this client-side framework that provides the hook into the web browser, whether it's a mobile web browser or a desktop web browser. The server is then responsible for taking those requests that are coming from the browser and interpreting them. And so on the server, you're going to run Node.js, you're going to run it alongside with PHP and Java. PHP, if you're not familiar, is a really great way to get started with writing web applications that run on the server. Java is just a really solid traditional application language for building out web apps. And then the server itself is going to be responsible for those client interactions with backend services, connecting with APIs, and reinforcing your security model. Now, can you do all of that in the client? Yes, you can do a lot of that in the client, particularly with the frameworks from Angular and Vue. They are really flexible. You can do some great things there. But one of the things you want to be looking at when you're working with building a web application is really three key things. One is security. The second is being able to scale your solutions, and the third is speed and responsiveness. And what I have found through my own architecture is that if I balance out between client and server, the load and the structuring of how you actually build those solutions, it really helps create a very seamless solution to your customer. And then at the back of all of this, you have your database, and MySQL and MongoDB are two popular databases, but you can also use Node.js to connect to many of the cloud databases that are running on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, IBM, other services. They all have connectors in via Node.js into their databases. So let's talk about the Node.js architecture and understand why it's so good. So to begin with, Node.js has what's called a single-threaded event loop architecture, and this allows you to be able to handle many concurrent clients at the same time. It's just a very flexible way of being able to scale up your support for many clients. And then in addition to that, we have the JavaScript event-based model along with the JavaScript callback mechanism that allows you to have this standard approach to being able to connect with and talk and discuss interactions between the client and the server. It's good to have these kind of standards where you're not using something that's unique to a specific framework or a specific technology. This just makes it so it's more accessible for everybody. So if we look at the actual Node.js server itself, everything centers around the concept of the event loop. And the event loop has an event queue, an operation completed via requests, threaded pull, and then it'll actually do the actual computation or the file system interaction. All of this interconnects in a nice seamless loop. The great thing again with Node.js is that it's not new technology. It's been around for almost a decade. It's very well tried out. Many of the largest websites out there are running Node.js. So let's now dig into each of the parts of the Node.js architecture. So let's talk about requests. So the way that the request works is that you have your framework such as Angular on the client, and that will then send a request to the web server. And there's many ways that those requests can happen, through web workers, through forms, and through other interactions. But at some point, a request is sent to the server. And so these requests can be for data, they can be for deleting data, they can be for updating data, they can be for interacting with services as mentioned before, but the goal is to have some kind of request. Now, once that request actually hits the server, and then we start actually getting into the queuing and threading process that centers around the event loop. And this is where Node.js really excels, because it's able to use that single threaded model to be able to manage from just even a few requests to tens of millions of requests. So it receives the actual request and starts the event queue. And this is where that single threading process starts, is by queuing everything up appropriately. And then it then maintains the threads within a pool. So you have the queuing process as one action, and then you have a threaded pool which manages those threads as well. And then we have an event loop which goes through and actually receives and processes those requests. And then finally, what we're doing is we're actually then going to be interacting with a system, and that could be a database, it could be a cloud system, it could be an API, file system, but we're interacting with something that's outside of the Node.js server. So the Node.js server itself is doing some actions on the server, but then it's also interact with things outside of its own server environment. And so let's talk a little bit about that workflow. So requests come in, they go into the event queue, and they get spiraled through the event loop. And then we have non-blocking operators, which are going to be doing the input-output polling, such as KQ, ePoll, and other services. And from there, we're also going to be then interacting with the threaded pool, and we're using the blocking operations to manage that threaded pool. And that threaded pool is going to now then go outside of the server and interact with something beyond the server. So whether that is a database or file system or API or microservice, these are the things that can be interacted with. And so let's go through some of these advantages that we have here. So I'm a fan of working with Node.js, so I have lots of advantages. So one of the big ones, though, right off the bat, is the ability to be able to handle multiple client requests quickly and easily. This really is important as we move into our digital ecosystems and we start scaling up solutions. You'll find that as you build successful apps, the demand for those apps will grow exponentially. And what that means is you need to be able to have a solution that can interact with requests quickly and easily. There's no need to create multiple threads because of the event loop. Again, this is another thing that's really critical when it comes to building out solutions. You want to be able to have a solution that can scale massively at the flip of a switch. Now, particularly as we start working on building out cloud-based solutions. Node.js also utilizes really low resources and memory. Again, when it may seem like a small thing when you have a solution and it's using just maybe a small amount of memory, but if that solution keeps adding to that memory usage, you then restrict it for how big that application can grow. So the less resources and memory a solution is using, the faster and higher it can grow in scale.
In this video, we'll help you install Node.js on your Windows system. So without further ado, let's begin. The first thing you need to do is download Node.js from their official website. So go ahead and type download Node.js. Navigate to their official website, and here you can see the 64-bit version. So go ahead and download that. Once the download is done, go ahead and run the downloaded Node.js installer. Accept the license agreement. Keep the default settings as it is. And then say install. So with that, we finished the installation process. Once Node has been successfully installed, the next crucial step is verification. Now this process ensures that Node has been properly installed. To do so, we first open the command prompt and then type in a few commands. To verify the successful installation, we type in this command, node-v. Now this command returns the version, and if it returns the version, it means it has been successfully installed. So here we go, it returns the latest version. Now the final step is to update the Node package manager. Now this npm is bundled with Node.js, which consists of all the repositories and packages required for development purposes. So to do that, type in the command npm install npm --global. Now that we're done with the installation of Node, let's go ahead and implement a small program. For that, we make use of a text editor. In our case, we've installed VS Code. So go ahead and download VS Code. Once you're done with the installation, this is what VS Code looks like. So go ahead and click on File and create a new file. It's going to be a simple program where you're going to print a hello world message on the web browser. To do that, we make use of HTTP modules. So Node comes with built-in HTTP modules to transfer data across it. So for that, we make use of a require method. We create a variable first, say var HTTP equals require, and just say HTTP within single quotes. Now the HTTP module can create an HTTP server that listens to the server ports and gives a response back to the client. To do that, we make use of the create server method. So let's go ahead and type the code. Say http.create server, and internally it consists of a function. Now the parameters to this function are request and response. Now the response is basically used to write to the client. So we say response.write, and here we type in the message. We say hello world, welcome to this tutorial. Once you're done with that, you end the response. So the server listens to a port number to display the message. By default, it listens to the port number 8080. So we keep that as it is and we end it. Save your file, say demo.js, maybe demo1.js, and say save. Now to run the program, you have to open the command prompt. So open your command prompt and mention the path to your file. So in our case, it's our desktop, say it on the desktop. So cd desktop. And now to run it, say node demo1.js. Now you navigate to your browser and say localhost 8080, and here we go. Our message is successfully displayed.
Welcome to this session on how to connect React.js with Node.js. And in this session, we are actually going to look at how do we connect React.js with Node.js. So a very warm welcome to this session on React.js connectivity with Node.js. And in this session, we are going to focus on how do we connect our React.js application with the Node.js platform. So we are going to dive into creating a hands-on demo, which will have two parts to it. We would have the client application that we will first create as a React application. We will then create an Express.js application with Node.js, and we will then try to connect both of those applications together. So Express.js is a rapid application development framework that allows us to create a web application very quickly on the Node.js platform, and we'll use it to create a custom API and then connect that endpoint to the React.js client application. So let's dive into our demo, and let's start with creating our client and Node Express applications and see how to set them up and then get them connected to each other. Let's start with our hands-on demo, and we will first go to the Node.js website, nodejs.org. We can download the LTS version, which is the stable version of Node.js. The moment I click on this, it will prompt me for a download. It will download the MSI file, and then all I need to do is double click on it, keep clicking on the next button and install. That would install Node.js for us. Next, we'll open our editor. You can use any editor of your choice. So I'm going to use an editor called Visual Studio Code, and let's open up the terminal here. And I also have the command prompt open where I've navigated to a folder that I've created called React.js demos. Now we'll invoke the npm package manager, which is invoked by the command npx. So npx will not only install packages but also execute them once they are installed. So once they are downloaded, it will execute the package, and we will use npx to go and create a React application called client. So while we give it time for the installation to complete, we can then open it within our editor. So we'll give it time so that the installation completes. So the installation is completed, and so we have seen here that the installation is now completed, and let's go and open up this project. So I will say file and open folder, and let me pick up that folder and we will open this application called client. So that's my client app. Let's fire up the terminal. So okay, so that has launched the terminal for us, and here all we need to do to fire up this application and get it running is npm start, which will compile and start up this application that is created. Let's close this. We'll go to the browser, and now let's say localhost 3000. So that gives us our startup page, the sample default startup page for the first client application. And this is going to work as our client. We'll now go and try to create the backend application, which is going to be another application that we will set up. And to create that, let's say npx express generator API. Okay, so this will create an express application on Node.js called API, and let's give it some time for installation. Okay, so that's done. Clear this screen. We'll come out here. We'll open another instance of the editor. We'll say open folder, and that's the API application. We'll say select folder, and the API application is opened. Let's go to the terminal. Now in the terminal, we will attempt to install all of the packages that are required, that would be logged in the package.json file. So the package.json file here would be listed. So you can see we have a list of packages that it uses, and npm install will go and install all of these packages that were pre-listed here. So let me ensure it's executed correctly, and we'll fire that once more. That's done. So npm install has installed all of the packages required, and let me terminate this run by pressing a Ctrl C. So this terminates the client application that was executing, and now we will say npm start so that this application executes, and let's refresh. So that's the standard express application now that has got installed. Now let's go to the API application. We'll go into the bin folder, and here we'll have a file called www. We will change the default port number from 3000 to 9000. Let me stop this application from executing. We've just updated the port number. Now let's go to the routes, and we'll create a new file in the routes folder called testapi.js. Here we will say variable express equal to require express, and here we'll say variable router equal to express dot router, and here we will say router dot get. We'll open this. So that's the default route. Root route is going to be slash, for which we'll add a callback function which will take the request and the response parameter and next pointer in case there is another function to call post that. And here we will just send a simple message saying API is working. Okay, a simple message sent out for the root default route, and we'll have to export this. So we'll say module dot exports equal to router. All right, so that's done. Let's go to the app.js file, and here let us import that. So here is where we will import this by saying app.use. We want to use the test API file, and that is test API router. And this is exactly the same variable name that we will declare here, which will be equal to require, and we are going to say routes test API. Alright, so let's try launching this now. We would say npm start after adding this code. Let's go out here, and 3000 test API is going to be the URL to hit. It's not 3000 but 9000 now because we just updated the port. So 9000 test API, and there we have our message which says that the API is working properly. So this is tested. Now let's go to the client application. In the client application, let's go to the app.js file. Okay, this is the file that we would have to revamp a bit. So let's revamp this. Here we will declare a class app which extends, so that creates a new module. So it extends react.component, and here we have constructor. We will accept the props. Here I would pass props to the superclass constructor and set the state to API response. Currently it just has an empty value. Next we'll add up a new function called call API, which will generate a call to that API URL, which was HTTP localhost. 9000 was the port and test API was the URL. Once this is called, we will then call the then function, declare response, generate a call to response.text, and then we will again say this dot set state API response is going to be equal to the response that comes in from that URL, which is nothing but a string which says API is working. Another function called component will mount. So the moment the component is initialized on the screen and loaded, we will generate a call to this function we created called call API. Then comes the render function. In the render function, we would go and return a div. Class name is app. This would be app header, the standard logo, after which in the paragraph, we wouldn't need the link here. Right after the header, we'll add a paragraph where we will print this dot state and the variable we created called API response, and we will data bind to that. So that largely completes the return. So we simply create this application, that's the React application that will talk to this API that is, and this URL that is hosted on Node, communicate with it, get a simple string as a response, print that string inside this React application. So once that's done, we have the component will mount, which is a lifecycle method here. It's a lifecycle event that gets triggered the moment the component loads, and that's when we have actually gone and executed the call API custom function. Let's go to the API application. We'll terminate the execution here. There's one more step that we'll have to perform, which is cross-origin resource sharing, which means that to allow the React application to communicate from another hosted domain to this particular domain server, we will actually have to enable cross-origin scripting and sharing. Otherwise, it will block the request coming from another application. So for that, we'll have to install globally cross-origin module, and --save indicates that it's going to do a global install for all applications that are on this particular system. So we've installed this and we'll clear the screen. Let's go to the app.js, and right here is where we would want it to go and use CORS. So we will say app.use CORS so that it uses this particular API, and here is where we will declare the CORS variable and go and import the new library package that we just installed, which is CORS. So looks good. And now let's fire up this application with an npm start. Let's also fire up client with an npm start. And now when I go and try looking for localhost 3000, which is the React application, the React application should go and talk to the API that is hosted on Node.js, which returns to me that string message. So if I go and ping that API separately, which is localhost 9000 test API, you can see this is a standard message. So here I've directly pinged the API that's hosted in Node.js. Now we are consuming it through the React.js application. And if you scroll down, you can see the message returned from Node.js into React saying the API is working properly. So the practical impact of this is to actually host RESTful services, etc. on Node as a server, and you can go and consume the data that is returned there, could be in string, text or JSON format directly into the React.js, acting as a client application.
And with that, we have come to the end of this tutorial. I hope it helped you get an understanding of Node and how it works. Thank you so much for being here and stay tuned for more from Simplilearn.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.